Monday to Friday and you get a paycheck the next Friday, what are you going to do on the weekend? You're probably going to start looking for new work, aren't you? Because what's happened? The promise is gone. The promise is what opens the future for us. The promise is what makes it safe to invest ourselves. The promise is what says to us that something will be there worth living into. And when God says, I promise, there it is written all over the sky, I promise that I will continue to go with you, then that is what gives us the courage to show up every single day and say, wow, another miracle of life today. You know what I mean when there's no promise? Let me give you a really good example of that. For years and years and years now, I've had couples in my office whose marriages were in trouble of one sort or another. And remember, I told you that one of the things that always concerns me is that couples usually tend to show up much later than they should. Sometimes too late. But when they show up, oftentimes what they're going to say to me is something like, well, you know, we want to work on things and decide if we want to stay together or not. And so the first thing I say to them is, not going to happen. Not going to happen. If you want me to spend time with you figuring out if you ought to stay together, we're wasting each other's time. Because here's what's going to happen. If we do it that way, there's no promise. There's no promise. And so what's going to happen then is, one of you is going to give 30%, but you're afraid to give 100% because you're not sure if the other person's going to give 100%. Then the other person's going to say, well, I only want to give 50% because if if you're not going to hang around, then, I'm just giving you more to hurt me and all that. And so this one says, well, I'm only going to give 25%. And then by this time, this person over here is saying, you really don't love me that much, do you? Because you really don't show it very much. And this person saying, you really don't love me that much because you really don't show it that much. So see, I think we've made up our mind, so okay, let's split. See how that works? If there's no promise, there's no hope. So what I tell them instead is, look, we can work on this. And trust me, I've seen lots of marriages survive. But here's what has to happen. You have to start by saying, I promise. For the next 6 months, we will work on this as though we will be married forever. And unless you can make that promise, you are wasting each other's time. The promise is what gives us the hope to step forward, to commit ourselves in our relationships with each other and our relationship with God. That's the power of the promise and the purpose of the promise. And that's why when God says, oh, there's my post-it note, there's the rainbow, I promise, always, always, there will never be a way in which you can get yourself to the place where I will say to you, forget it, that's enough, I'm tossing you in the corner, I'm going to start all over with somebody else. There'll never be that, says God. And when Jesus stepped foot on the face of the earth, guess what's at the bottom of the rainbow? It's not chocolate. It's not the pot of gold. It's Jesus. Look and see if the rainbow's still up there. Have you ever seen the end of a rainbow? The photo that Cheryl had up there earlier, it showed the end of a rainbow. I actually caught one of those in Canaan Valley one time. That's the picture I was showing the kids, the end of the rainbow. The end of the rainbow is Jesus, because that's God's promise once more in the person of Jesus, that I will not allow you to get to the place that you are so overwhelmed that you say, why bother to even try to get back? There is no way back, because God says, yes, there is. It's this Jesus. And that's the good news. When the Gospel of Mark says, and it said it, we read it, Robin read it, when the Gospel of Mark says, Jesus came, he was baptized, he was driven into the wilderness. That was a way of saying, this is the one. I promised before, I'm promising again. Here it is. All you got to do is follow. When Jesus steps foot then and says, here's the good news. There's a chance to repent. There's a chance to repent. Have you ever been in that situation in your life where you find that you've done something, you failed, you tried again, you failed, you tried again, you failed, and you finally just kind of say to yourself, I might as well just give in to it. Several of my